Welcome, everyone. This is Colleen Ferrary. I am so happy to have some very special, maybe hostile guests with me today.
No, we're all among friends.
I want to go around, and we'll on my screen, Joe is to my left. So let's start with Joe. Introduce yourself, and then if you don't mind, I'm going to tell your party affiliation, and I'm going to tell them why I love having you on this call and why I think your voice is important for small business.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joe Petrowsky. I'm the proud owner of Trac Financial. We're a mortgage company. We are licensed in 8 states, all of New England, New York, and Florida. So I can tell you from talking to people from all across those states that I have gotten a good feel for where we are politically in this country right now.
Oh boy, and you're a Republican.
I am.
True, Republican.
Proud of it.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what, Joe? I think what you lend to the table is you've been in business how many years?
More years than I care to admit.
I know, I've been trying to get that out of you for years. But here's the thing, you've seen recessions, you've seen business go up, down, different presidencies. You've run a business through many, many different controversial leaders. So I think that
I'll take it from the interest rate side. I have seen interest rates that are from 12 to 18% if you're looking for a mortgage, from anywhere from 2.5% to 3% looking for a mortgage. So I have seen every extreme that exists.
And I think the effect of the political party on interest rates and on our economy is so important. So I'm looking forward to hearing you weigh in on that. William Kuntz, please introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are.
I'm William Kuntz. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me at the pushing of my friend Kyle Reyes. I work for Pandora Media. I worked at CBS Radio for 10 years prior to my couple years here at Pandora. I don't own a small business, but I've worked with hundreds upon hundreds. And now that I've shifted to Pandora and I'm doing more of a national thing, I think I've got quite a comparison between the two. And I am a Democrat. Awesome. Tried and true.
I'm really excited to hear because I think that you have the broadest spectrum of business owners and business to hear from. So I'm really looking forward to your perspective. And now I know it's been hard to hold this wild horse back up in the top left-hand corner here, at least on my screen. But Kyle, introduce yourself, please.
What's going on, guys? I am Kyle. I'm the president and CEO of the Silent Partner Marketing. We've got clients in 48 states. So if anybody knows anybody in Hawaii, I would love a reason to have a tax deduction to go out there. We do business with everybody from small businesses to multi-billion-dollar corporations. I've been dubbed the caffeinated conservative. I actually try and avoid politics in business, but somehow I got roped into this.
Yep.
Yes, I am the Ropey, Colleen Ferrari, owner of Small Business USA. And I love that our business owners are all over the place, but there's been some recent studies that said small business owners tend to lean Republican and tend to lead with Trump. So I'm going to open it up by letting you guys start off by telling us who you're going to elect and what you believe how you believe they will affect our business environment. Who wants to go first?
William, why don't we let the Democrat jump in on this?
I don't even get to piggyback anything. I understand why Republicans why small business owners side on the Republican side. It's generally a financial decision, and the tax benefits, the ability to deduct in certain places, the opportunity to fly around to different states, as my friend Kyle just enjoyed, having some business in Hawaii isn't a bad thing. I understand why small business owners are Republican. When I look at this election, I think for the first time, the GOP has nominated somebody who is not a Republican. This is a man who has 7 different affiliations in his life, including jumping to the Reform Party in 1995, then jumping back to Democrat, and as we know, providing donations to Hillary Clinton. So as much as I understand why small business owners are voting Republican, I can't say that the GOP nominee is a tried and true Republican. So then when I then fall back onto what are his policies, I have absolutely no idea. So I then shift towards, okay, 4 years of what I know or 4 years of potential lunacy, it tends to be a no-brainer to me. That's why I side the way I do, yet I am respectful to why Republicans are the way they are. However, this election is far different from any one that a Republican has had prior.
So am I hearing that maybe you're a Republican disguised as a Democrat today?
I would say that I'm trying to understand, as small business owners, are you purely siding with the financial side of what you're voting for, or is there a morality in a bigger picture, such as infrastructure, such as trade deals, education? What are these tax breaks? So I'm open to learning what are drawing these tried and true Republicans to somebody who you would say shares more views that I share.
So from a business perspective, you identify as a Republican sometimes. Is that where we're going with this?
I mean, I think that a lot of Democrats are fiscally responsible and socially liberal. So
I don't know. I think a lot of Democrats are fiscally completely irresponsible, including the person who's running for office right now.
Okay, wait, let's talk about, let's finish up with Hillary Clinton and what she's bringing to small business. So yesterday she announced a new tax cut for all small business owners, right?
Yes.
So we currently have the highest tax rate for businesses in the world. Forget the United States, but in the world. So how does small business, large business compete in the world if we have the highest tax rate? How is that good for employment going forward?
That does push a question to me, though. So you're talking about a world economy then. So you are talking about the need to have some sort of globalization, yet you're standing behind an isolationist. So if you want to talk about the direction that the economy or jobs can go, let's look at Brexit, as he self-called himself a couple of days ago. We had an immediate economic effect of Brexit that in turn fixed itself about 2 weeks later. Yet the pound is still getting absolutely hammered. So if you want to talk about how we do things on a global level, then let's keep globalization part of the conversation, not remove it.
But we also have an economy that is artificially inflated through quantitative easing. So, I mean, Trump's point about being Mr. Brexit actually isn't far from the truth, because the reality of it is that every pundit and huckster and pollster out there said that exit was never going to happen, much like they said he would never become the nominee.
I'm not
well, let's see, though. Kyle, I want you and Joe to say, what is Trump going to bring? Because I think there's some things that Hillary has already put on the table that she wants to bring to the table, right? She wants to bring tax cut. She wants to have incentives for state and federal to help small business owners, to expand them, and to focus on keeping them in the country, which I think Trump has been talking about this. Let's keep big business in the country so we can continue to fuel small business. But what about Trump? What does he bring to the table? Kyle?
Can we quantify this down to the mortgage and real estate business, which has a large effect on what goes on in this country? So I'll start it off with Obamacare, for example. As a result of Obamacare, which Hillary wants to expand from its current position that it's at now, here's what's happening in the real world with clients that are coming into my door for a mortgage. So many employers are now taking their employees down to part-time versus full-time so that they don't have to pay for insurance. There are also many of them, rather than expanding, are keeping their full-time employees below 50 so that they don't have a lot of the same effect that the larger company has. So I wind up in many cases having clients come to me for a mortgage that want to own a home instead of paying rent, who have 2 or 3 part-time jobs instead of having 1 full-time job, and have insurance. There is no insurance available to them because of their part-time help. Their part-time work. So in those cases, and you can't even imagine what percentage of the public, and they are not even in the role of, when we hear that the unemployment rate is 5%, that is the most bogus number on this planet. If it's not double, it's more than double already, because those people that are working part-time are not considered unemployed. They are totally underemployed. So when they come in for a mortgage, I can't get them a mortgage because they are part-time employees rather than full-time.
Well, and that's not even considering the number of people that have entirely dropped out of the workforce and who are no longer looking for jobs. We see the highest rate of unemployment when we consider those numbers that we've ever seen before. We see entitlements at an all-time high. We have seen a massive shift towards a society where not only do you not have to work, but you're shamed if you are those people who are winning. You are shamed if you are the 1% or if you're doing well in this economy.
So I don't know if you saw Brian's question, but I really want to stick to how will your candidate
Can I please chime in here? Because that was just literally the Trump campaign in a nutshell. Thank you for telling me what is wrong. What can Trump do to help? And all I've heard is jobs, yet no plan. Tax breaks, yet no income levels. So he's going to adjust the tax breaks from 7 to 3, the tax brackets from 7 to 3. That's going to be great for both consumers and small businesses. Yet what are the income levels for these 3 said tax brackets? Are they going to be driven by states? Is it going to differ from state to state? The issue is this, not what's wrong. How are you going to fix it? What's the substance behind that?
All right, so let's answer that simple question, because I think it's a good question. How will he fix it? So his suggestion right now is he's adding $10 trillion worth of debt his first month in office. Right? That's the only thing that we've heard so far. So how
that means the economy doesn't improve at all during that kind of a thought process? In other words, is everything going to stay the same as it is in the Obama administration, where there's no desire for businesses to grow?
So Joe, what you're saying is he's going to appeal Obamacare. That's the first thing that he said he's going to do. What else is Trump going to do? Now, let's take the bashing. I'll give you plenty of time to duke it out. But what is your candidate going to do for small business?
Okay, so let's continue with my business for a moment. During the first term of the Obama administration, we got this gift called Dodd-Frank, which was over 2,000 pages, which were only led by 3 people that were only voted in and only read by 3 people that voted for it, that admitted that they read it, and they didn't. Only half of the regulations under that act have been written to date. So that means we have twice as many regulations that are going to come into effect that are going to affect small business and the financial industry as a whole. And you like it or not, the financial industry is what runs this country, whether you like it or not. That's where the growth has to be. So he's talking about eliminating all of these regulations that have stymied small business growth in this country.
Why would they put in place?
Under Hillary Clinton, she announced that she wants to expand Dodd-Frank.
Why were the regulations put in place, and what forced Obama's first term?
Listen, it was already, the horse had already left the barn by the time this was already passed.
No, but what started the recession?
Hold up. The banking industry and the financial industry had already regulated itself. So all of a sudden we got all these new regulations that are on top of what's already been done.
That was specifically tied to mortgages, sir. But they were
listen, on a mortgage, it costs my clients an extra $500 to $1,000 to do a mortgage today versus 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
So repealing
that's important because of the recession and the bubble that popped in 2006 and 8. So
listen, I'm delighted.
Wow, I would say, sir, you're very, very, very good job still being in business as a private mortgage lender, considering the bubble that popped. And I'm sure that's because you only give qualified loans to those who can have them.
Can I get some popcorn over here? Let me get some popcorn. Hold on. Can we also point out for a second the death tax, the estate tax here that Trump wants to eliminate to make it easier for small businesses to grow? So why should it be that if I have built up a business over the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, that I have to get taxed to high hell when I hand that business down to my family? Trump wants to eliminate that, which has a huge positive impact on businesses. I mean, we also have to consider the scope and the breadth of the impact that regulations have on businesses, and the scope and the breadth, as Joe pointed out, that healthcare has on it. I will say this. I watched on Fox last week, and I know you're going to roll your eyes at that, William, as Governor Malloy came on in full-on support of Hillary Clinton's tax plan and the impact that it has on small businesses, because Governor Malloy has done a spectacular job of driving business into this state.
You have to admit, there's a little irony in Malloy standing up for Clinton in Connecticut. We lost 10% of our businesses here.
Well, they can relate on the email scandals, at least.
Let me ask you guys this question, because I think Russ Lowry brings up a good point. And just answer the question. he suggests that business owners don't care about as much about taxes as what is done with those taxes. True or false?
Yes.
I say yes.
I would agree on that. Well, yes and no. So I would say yes into what's done with those taxes, because if those taxes are being squandered, one of the reasons that I like Trump is because he is a CEO, and the president is the largest CEO in the country. And so we need somebody who's able to fiscally responsibly take care of that money and be prudent in how they're spending that money. So would I be more comfortable with my tax revenue being spent if it was in the hands of someone who knew how to actually successfully run a business? 100%. Yes, Russ. I'm with him.
I can't chime in on the true or false because I don't pay taxes as a small business owner, so that would be an invalid place for me to chime in. Yeah, I would say that if we're going to talk about Trump and his business acumen as a CEO, I think it's vital to address three things, and then I'll put it back. And as he opens, first things first, you talk about Trump being a CEO, and Trump has said in the areas that he does not know, he will hire the best people possible. That he's on his third campaign manager and hasn't been able to get through an 11-month campaign.
Ouch.
The staff that
How is that a bad thing?
Let me finish. Because it's a bad thing, because there's things that he does not know that he wants to hire people to do for him, yet the presidency and the job within it is not a rotating door that you can swap out every 4 months to get yes men behind you. That's first on his CEO acumen.
Well, assessment of talent. There is that is a valid question.
Well, hold on.
Oh boy, this is going to be good.
Second of all, yes, he's probably the best salesman who's ever set his foot on this earth. Yet his casinos, his hotels, and his golf courses have done no better than when he took them over. And his stock that he was the CEO of was a $90 publicly traded offering that lost 90% of its value, never mind the $30 billion in debt in New Jersey that he was able to get squashed to 5 through Chris Christie. So my question for you is this. How good of a CEO is Donald Trump, or how good of a salesman is Donald Trump?
So you tend to go on the assumption that just because you have to roll a business and call it quits or change strategies with the business, that makes you a bad CEO. The fact of the matter is, let's look at what happened in Iowa.
I don't know if he's
so
good.
Hang on. So Trump blew Iowa. And he immediately saw the chink in his armor, and so he adjusted his strategy. I would much rather go with a candidate who's able to turn around and say, yeah, you know what? I effed that up. I blew that.
He hasn't said that once.
Well,
look at how he changed over his staff.
One time in his entire campaign.
He said he regretted, and we don't even know what it was that he regretted.
Well, that's because he was
when it comes to owning his
warriors. I mean, the reality of it is that I would rather have somebody who's able to say, you know what, this guy wasn't working out. I'm dumping him and moving on to a better opportunity that's going to be better than someone who says, oh, well, no, I swear I handed over all of those emails. Or who says, you know what, even though this hasn't been working, I'm going to save face and double down on my failure so that I don't look like a buffoon.
So I'm going to tell you a true story of a friend of mine. He had been trying to so I'm that person who I don't think either candidate's great. I have to admit, right? I think I fit in with half of America. I don't agree either candidate is the best candidate for the job. But let me ask you this, Kyle. As a business owner, a friend of mine finally gets this meeting with Trump, is really excited. He's got this deal that he's going to negotiate. Trump walks into his office, stands 3 feet away from him, and he goes, God, you have the worst breath. You need to do something. Let me get somebody to get you some mints. And completely works on demoralizing him and making him feel insecure and incompetent. And then, you know what? He said, you know what? I was so uncomfortable after that situation that I gave him, he goes, I didn't make out in the deal. He said, Trump made out in the deal. But do you want a world leader? I think Howard Stern said it best. I can't believe I'm quoting Howard Stern, because can you imagine the book of presidential quotes associated with Donald Trump.
Here's what I don't care about. I don't care about presidential quotes. Here's what I do care about, though. I care about the very fact that if he couldn't go into that meeting and hold his own because he was insecure about his breath, he probably wasn't going to be successful in business. I hate to say, but that's just
the man that I'm talking about, Kyle, is worth over $1 billion. This is not a slouch, but I'm talking about ethically. This is how he's talking to.
So he had his feelings hurt because he had bad breath and he blew the business deal. And you're going to tell me that he would have been successful if he couldn't even hold his own?
No, what I am saying, regardless, is this how you want Trump conducting business as a president of the United States? You want him? I think my 12-year-old daughter said it best. She said, "Mom, the way I see it, Hillary Clinton is more of what we already had. But Donald Trump is probably really good for business, but he's an awful big risk."
Hillary is not a big risk. I mean, Hillary has more scandals swirling around her than anyone else. And let's not forget that the Supreme Court is on the line here. And Hillary Clinton is looking for a fundamental shift in some of our constitutional rights, period. So
it's never been stated or proven. That is blasphemy.
Right. It's also never been stated or proven that.
But that's horseshit to also say that she wants to take away your guns. That's not true. Just please spit facts. That's not true.
But how is that not true?
Because he's never said it.
Guys, hold on. All
right, we can spitballs all day, right? But let's kind of go stick to facts. Joe, what do you have to add? And then I want to get to some of the chat from some of the viewers and kind of I want you guys to respond to what they're saying.
So I would probably be in the same camp you are in that I could do without either one of them.
Me too.
However, having said that, I can't go to sleep thinking that I would have ever voted for Hillary. I just cannot do that with all of the baggage that she brings to this election. So having said that, I have to weigh, based on the two possibilities here, where my business, my family, my state, my country has a better shot of survival and getting to the next step. And that's not with Hillary.
And I understand the anti-Hillary portion of it. I'll make 2 quick points and I guess we'll kick it back. Email scandals is a thing that is awful and it's annoying and it's a drip that's never going to stop dripping.
And it's illegal. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Are you aware of the George Bush email scandal in 2007?
So that makes it right. We're going to go back to that approach.
I'm not pointing out if it is right. And she's acknowledged that it's been wrong. But outside of the emails, it's the only thing that Republicans are truly hanging their hat on. While I can pick 100 moral and fundamental reasons why I object to Donald Trump. No, it depends on which are more important to you as voters.
Do you want to talk about the foundation and about how she basically sold out her office as Secretary of State? Let's look at the uranium deal where a huge influx of funding came into her foundation.
But my question is this. It's all that the foundation actually serves a very good purpose, right? 10 million people get cheap malaria drugs. Is there an aspect of it on the politics and the surrounding aspect? It's awful. But how is it different than when one of the top allies and aides to Donald Trump, Governor Chris Christie, comes in and alleviates a $30 million debt in New Jersey to $5 million in 1 month upon taking office in his position? The point is, it happens.
I'm sorry, is Christie running for president?
No,
I must have missed that.
The guy who dodged the taxes in New Jersey for the state that he had 4 properties and dodged them for 5 years.
He used the laws. If you don't like the laws.
Let me ask you this, Kyle. Kyle, let me challenge you on this. How about the undervaluing? And so they just showed that Trump's attorney went to court to undervalue all of his properties for tax purposes. Yeah. However, when he valued them over 10 times more than he had his attorney fight in court.
Allowed, yes.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start by saying the market is the market. So the market dictates absolutely everything. If a property or a product or a service is valued at one number at one point, and then that valuation changes, or you are using you are using the tax laws, the legal laws, to evaluate your company, I don't have a problem with that.
And
I
when
think
that
Joe might be
company-
qualified to weigh in on this from a valuation perspective, though.
And I'm
Okay,
sure-
can I address this the same issue on real estate values and taxes? I'll give you a perfect example. I have a building that I'm currently in, and on my tax returns, the basis of the value of this property that is left that has been undepreciated is $50,000. The building is actually worth $350,000 if I went to sell it. So am I going to value this building at $50,000 or $350,000? So when you use the tax, what's on a tax return doesn't mean crap what real value is.
I'm not arguing that, and I don't think there's any argument on it. But the point is, all of these tax and loopholes that those people making all of that money do trickle down to us. We pay more taxes, and we lose out on infrastructure, education, and every other aspect that we live in. So the question is, do you want to hire Trump and continue to have 1% loopholes, a 15% rate across the board? Where is the rest of it going to get paid for? Nothing adds up. You have 20%, 50%, and 80% cuts, yet no aspect of where you're going to fill the gap. And thus, as was brought on by our moderator, $10 trillion in debt in the first year.
So I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Where was the point, William, where Hillary talked about any ways that she plans on reducing the debt? Because all I've seen is spending from her as well.
Well, I mean, just look at infrastructure alone. She wants to immediately put a $250 billion bill in for infrastructure in the country. Trump says $550 billion, but we have no idea where the money's coming from.
So with Hillary, we have no idea where the money's going.
Well, you know what, let me just throw, with Trump, I will say that Trump did go out there and say that he was going to revisit every government organization and cut the fat, right? There was some pretty severe plans, and how was he going to cut the fat and eliminate spending at that level? And that's where a big chunk of that money was going to come from.
Did you guys know how many, hang on, did you guys know how many contractors are able to compete in the state of Connecticut to handle the road infrastructure?
Oh,
Two. And do you know what these guys do? They say, well, yeah, I'll fix Route 20, but I also want every single road that has to be repaved, and they all have to be repaved within a 20-mile radius of Route 20 if we're going to do that project for you.
Wait, but I think that's
you're addressing any of this.
No. Okay,
It's
so
all
let's.
boils down to what's wrong. Tell me how it's being addressed.
I agree with you,
I lost you.
William.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
I agree. Go ahead.
I said everything is pointing out what is wrong. I'm asking how these things are going to be addressed. So, and Trump has flip-flopped millions of times. So my question is this.
Millions of times. I'd love a few examples of how he's flip-flopped.
I mean, he just literally, Kellyanne Conway 3 days ago said a deportation force is TBD. That was something that was going to be guaranteed part of his plan.
And did you not hear his response on it, though? When he flat out said, yes, we have to look at every aspect of how we're going to implement this. That's not a flip-flop.
He had an agreed-upon tax rate, and he flipped it the day of his economic speech and dropped it lower. It was supposed to be 35. He dropped it to 33 day of. I mean, he was going to build a wall. The Mexicans are going to pay for it. How?
Okay, let's talk about let's talk about them as business owners. Okay, so Hillary Clinton, we know that she can raise money for sure, but Donald Trump, let's not. William, I'm gonna slow you down on this one because I know you want to wait, but stand up for why Kyle and Joe. Why is it okay that this man filed bankruptcy 4 times?
Because he used the existing tax laws to protect his businesses and to protect ultimately his assets. And he has acknowledged that he's done that. And guess what? That's the same thing that any business owner would do. They would. That's just real. We can crucify him all we want for that, for saying, well, how dare you use our existing tax laws? How dare you do that? I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, Joe.
So, does it sound good on his resume? No, it does not. It absolutely does not. However, as Kyle said, that's what the tax law is today. If you want to change the tax law so he doesn't have that opportunity, you need to change the tax law. You have to work within the environment that's there. He worked with the environment that's there. Any sound-minded business person would have done that in that same circumstance. I don't care if the name is Donald Trump or Colleen. It doesn't make a hill of beans difference. No, do I like that? No, but that's what was done.
But if we're
Okay, so if you want to hang your hat on that defines who he is as a human being or a business person, I think that's crazy.
But I do think it's a reflection on his business acumen, because I think it would be hard for me to sit here in front of you, and if you had bankrupted 4 businesses yet profited on all of them, it would unfortunately make me question your business acumen, and that is what he's hanging his campaign on, and that's an issue.
Are we also saying, William, that all his other businesses are in the same boat?
I mean, I can name 11 that are in the same boat, so that's a double-digit number, and that's a significant amount, in my opinion.
So when you say they're in the same boat, all of them have filed bankruptcy?
Bankruptcy or completely folded. I mean, this is a man who said in 2007 the mortgage was the best industry to be in, and started Trump Mortgage, and it folded 18 months later. I mean, that's not bankruptcy.
That's because he couldn't compete with me.
Or he also wasn't. And he should have come to Connecticut and brought it.
He had no shot. If you're going to compete with me,
but, such good business acumen, he couldn't see that bubble popping, right?
Listen, through the entire industry, in 2006, there were 23,000 mortgage brokers in the state of Connecticut. There's 3,000 today, and I'm left standing.
Damn right you are.
Hang on.
Well, so this poses a question.
Hang on 1 second, Colleen. I want to throw this out there. So Trump rolled out this vodka, and Trump said, and it's delicious, and I plan on drinking it as soon as actually I'm going to get some ice right now. But Trump went into it his goal was to be the #1 vodka. He wanted to crush Grey Goose. He wanted to crush Belvedere. And bottom line is that it didn't work. It didn't happen. The market shifted, and it just didn't work. So would it have been a good idea for him to double down and say, I know this product's not selling, but the heck with it, I'm going to keep pumping money into it? No, he made a smart business decision, and he walked away from that.
That was started as a bad business decision. He should not have created a bottle of vodka with his name on it.
Why?
Look at Google X is completely built on the premise.
11 other times he's opened businesses with his name on it. It hadn't worked. Your point is this: all he does is license out his name onto things.
No, that's not my point. My point is that he's not afraid to try new things. As a business owner, you have to be willing to take risks, but you also have to be able to identify when something's not working and change. And
I don't want my president trying 11 things in 4 years and failing at all of them.
Well, that's what your president's done for the last 8 years.
I would say the economy's doing far better than it was when he took office.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. What is the national debt right now? What is the true unemployment level? What is the impact of Obamacare on small businesses?
Where was it prior?
It wasn't this high.
I was challenged, Kyle.
Doubled the national debt in 8 years. He's more than doubled the national debt.
But Kyle, I think the other piece is
your 401k was chopped down 70%.
You're 100%. It is built up on quantitative easing. I mean, we are looking at a number of bubbles in this market.
And
period.
Multiple economists say that Donald Trump will force us into a larger recession immediately. And I'm going to take 20 to 50 economists on that one.
Sure. And every single one of the major national media outlets also said that Donald Trump never had a shot at the
That's
primary.
not the point. He won. I get it. He won. They were wrong. Okay. Tell me how.
So what makes you think that an economist isn't wrong on this? You really think that
they're economists versus pollsters? They're very different.
You're absolutely right. They're very, very different. And yet the reality of it is that how do they make their money?
It's a pollster
But they make their money on things that are being done to artificially inflate in this economy the market. The market is artificially inflated. Period. I don't think that anybody can debate that based on quantitative easing and overvaluations.
Okay, let's look at the trust piece, because one of the things that most small business owners say about Trump is that I think they did a poll, and 36% of all the money that Donald Trump has raised has come from small business owners, which is a pretty significant percentage when you look at campaigns in general. And when they're interviewed, an independent poll, I think it was Business Insider did a poll that actually found that when they interviewed these business owners, they said business owners trusted Donald Trump more because he was going to say and do what he said he was going to do, and he understood business. Trust is one of those things it's kind of this two-sided coin, right? Because we have Hillary and Trump that in many polls are neither are trusted. Over 50% of the American population doesn't trust them. I want you to weigh in on your candidate. Don't beat up the other candidate, but I want you to tell us why we should trust your candidate.
Joe.
Joe?
Okay, so by the way, before I answer that question, William, do you think there's going to be a recession if Hillary is elected?
I think there will be some sort of a leveling off. Yes, the interest rates need to go up. We all know that. There's no argument there.
Okay, I can tell you that there's going to be a much larger recession if Hillary gets elected versus Donald Trump. I can only speak that from where I sit in my business seat. I can't do it from where you sit or Kyle sits. I can only do it from where I sit in my seat. Okay, so Colleen, just ask that question one more time. I want to make sure I'm addressing the question instead of going off on a tangent.
So why should we trust Donald Trump?
Okay, so I have to look at that is which one I trust less, not which one I trust more. Unfortunately, I mean, I wish I had a better answer, but I trust Hillary less based on her history versus the history that I've observed with Trump.
Okay. Kyle?
I would agree with that completely. I would also add in that Hillary is bought and paid for by lobbyists.
Wait, you can't.
Hang on. But I'm quantifying that by saying that it is a question. Joe's absolutely right. It's a question of which one I trust more or which one I trust less. I trust Hillary less because I believe that she is a career politician who is bought and paid for. Trump could have kept doing his thing and making his money and being a business owner, but he didn't. He decided to enter into this, and I trust him more simply because I trust Hillary less based on track record.
And that's
all right, William.
That's a significant issue for me when I talk to most people and why they distrust. It's because Hillary's been vetted for 40 years. So you know absolutely everything about her. And unlike his inability to release tax returns or multiple aspects of his 11 bankruptcies, I don't know anything about Donald Trump. All I know is he changes his mind and he provides bigotry and misogynist statements constantly. So I don't know which one I trust more. I can tell you, I know in 40 years of Hillary being a civil servant for this country, I got a little bit more of a hat for her to stand on than Donald Trump's track record. So,
well, I'm sorry, what was the bigotry that you're referring to from Trump?
I mean, he literally said an American judge couldn't do his job because he was of Mexican descent. It's the end of conversation, Kyle.
Did you look at the
he really runs that line.
He's an American citizen, Kyle.
William, you're absolutely correct. He was absolutely stupid for saying it.
It's Kyle, come on.
I believe that it's always important to look at the history of people who are weighing in legally.
He was born here. He's an American judge who has fought the Mexican cartels consistently, Kyle. But come on.
And look at some of the money behind him. I don't think it's unfair to look at the history of money that's behind people and look at the potential.
I would prefer we don't have an alt-right conversation right now.
Hey, there's been a lot of controversy about Trump never speaking in front of an African-American group. So when he gave the speech last week about doing right by African-American citizens and helping the inner cities, he chose to give that speech in a place where the demographic was 1% minority, and there was not one person of a mixed race in that audience.
Quite frankly, Colleen, I was offended by a lot of what he said there. I think he made an absolute mistake because he spoke about all blacks and the schools and so forth all being bad. I can tell you that I do business with many African Americans who have a lot of goddamn money. So to make the statement that all of them don't have money or are poor or are crooks or shysters, I mean, made absolutely no sense. Secondly, the venue that he chose to do it in made no sense to me. If you want to go into downtown Milwaukee or in Hartford, or you want to carry on that conversation, I would have been a lot more comfortable with it. Now, the point that he was attempting to make, quite frankly, I could have said it a hell of a lot better than he did, was valid, was absolutely valid. The point of it made sense, but how he said it, the way he said it, to me made no sense.
And I agree, and I'm happy to hear you say that. You don't go talk to women in front of men, right? You don't. Right. It's pretty lunacy. I lost my train.
I just want to share that I don't know if everybody saw the Q&A, but apparently we want William for president. Hey, I want to just let's talk about communication style and how it relates to small business. Because one thing that we, especially Kyle and I, end up in this space a lot, business owners don't always communicate well. And as they're growing their business, that's one of the number one things. Trust and communication is the number one thing that helps a business owner move forward. And I even think, William, in your business and Joe, in your business as well, if you can't articulate your message clearly, if you can't respond with charisma, get complicated messages across in a simple way, how are you going to bring the entire country together? And as a business owner, that's probably what I worry about most with this election on both sides, because maybe Hillary is a little better versed than Trump, but I still don't think either one of them has the ability to talk to America.
I have a question actually for my counterparts, and I think is a good one. As Trump has made it pretty clear that he has isolated Hispanics, whether it's been intentional by him or not, and whether it's been through national security or not. But it is the largest growing demographic in this country. My question to you as business owners is, how does isolating the largest demographic in this country and getting behind that benefit your business?
It won't. It will absolutely not. It's currently 15% of my business, and quite frankly, it's growing at the fastest pace of all the demographics that I do business with, and so much so that I've had to hire Spanish-speaking employees to work with them because there is often a language barrier. So rather than allowing them to adapt to me, I've had to work around adapting to them. So the way he's handled the message, I think, is a poor one. Hopefully he'll figure it out between now and the end. And as you say, he may have to do some flip-flopping to get there. But if he loses that demographic to the percentages that he's talking about, I think he's now right around 20% in that demographic. So unless he gets to 30 or 35%, the election is going to be lost.
Romney was 27 and lost, and he's well below
that. 2020, Hispanics will outnumber whites and blacks in the United States.
Yeah, I was actually just doing a study with the college I work with, and the largest growing number of high school graduates by 2020 will be Hispanics. So it's where the growth of high school.
You know, guys, there's one thing that I don't think we can ignore here if we're talking about messaging, and it's been the paradigm shift that's happened in this election. All of a sudden, you see a tremendous amount of Republicans who are saying, the hell with Trump, we're voting for Hillary. You see a tremendous amount of people, including many unions who have historically voted 100% Democrat, who are going, you know what, something about this guy and his message resonates with me. There's been a huge paradigm shift, and I really believe that a big part of that paradigm shift is obviously because of the economic environment that we're in, but I also believe that it's because of the way that the messages are being conveyed through social media. So I'll give Obama credit where credit is due. His campaign over the 2 campaigns that he ran was very successful at that grassroots level of utilizing free media. And whether you love him or you hate him, and William, I know you love Trump so much, but we have to acknowledge that he's done a spectacular job of leveraging the shit out of social media and out of the free media to get that message out there to people that wouldn't have been touched by that message through traditional advertising sources.
And I totally agree with that. And he does it better than anybody. He's a content wizard. I have 2 major concerns drawn off of it, though, is that we're all in business. I'm in the business of marketing. I sell advertising. You buy advertising. He has spent nothing. And that is not necessarily good for the business that we're in. The other issue that I have truly is that he's using the media as a way to attack what is arguably the most important thing that we have, and that's the freedom of speech. And when you go to Trump rallies and there are people in those areas that are talking about killing media members who are just there to provide a voice, I actually have a huge issue with this. And then when he brings up rigging elections, he's going at the fundamental issues that make our democracy, and he's attacking them, and he's attacking the integrity of them. And these are all reasons why I can't vote for this man. And I hope outside of the R next to his name, and as financial business owners, those outside factors do weigh into your vote this November.
William, is that any different than Black Lives Matter?
I think that I don't want to get into the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter debate. I believe in Black Lives Matter. I do think there is an issue with how cops treat blacks in this country. It was proven in Baltimore with the FBI investigation where a guy was pulled over 300 times and never once given a ticket. There is racial profiling in this country, and it is important to put an eye to making that better. I don't think it's a difference between Black lives and all lives. Yes, all lives matter, but we do need to put more an emphasis on making Black lives more important in this country.
So you don't think it has anything to do with that culture, though? So, for example, in the 1960s...
That's a racist statement to say that culture.
But that's not a racist statement. This is based on fact. So in the... Hang on. In the 1960s, 20% of black families were fatherless. Now that number is upwards of 70%, and there have been left-leaning organizations that have said that statistically you are more likely to graduate college and perform better financially if you come from a household with two parents. So are you going to tell me that our country now, when we have a black president, a black attorney general, when we have police departments that in these communities, in Baltimore, for example, that have a black police chief and an overwhelming number of black police officers, that those people that we're more racist now than we were during the civil rights movement?
It's not saying that you're more racist before or now, and I really don't want to go down this road. It does make me a little bit uncomfortable, but I do want to say one thing. Whether you have a black person doing the job or not does not mean that there are not factors and prejudices behind the decisions in these cities. And to just say that because a black president and a black attorney general is in a position does not mean that there are not prejudices. And this is an issue I have with the Trump campaign. It's like when he says in front of white people, black people worry about going down the road and being shot. I know 10 black people who never worry about being shot. So to point out that culture, I have a fundamental issue with. And we're going down a plane where we're pointing pictures.
But that's not pointing. If you look at the statistics of the black unemployment rates under the Obama administration versus previous administrations, the unemployment rate in that community is higher than ever before.
But
is that
who are the first people who are affected by a recession or a depression? Lower income people. And when did that recession hit? Prior to Obama's first term. So who's that going to immediately affect? Lower income people and minorities.
And yet the minority community has recovered in the job market exponentially slower under Obama than those positions were lost.
Everybody's forgetting where I have no comment.
Well, we are going to take on the topic of Black Lives Matter and how to talk about this with your employees and with your teams, because we know that this is such a volatile conversation. So Small Business USA is doing this type of format about this race conversation in the middle of September. So please look for that.
Good plug. Good plug.
This is what we do, right? But I think it's an important conversation, and I loved that, William, I think you said it. I don't want to talk about this. This makes me uncomfortable. And I think we do have to talk about that in this election, in business, on a regular basis.
I do want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it in a way where we say just because a black person's in a position, it's fixed. And that's lunacy to me.
I agree with you on that. I think we all agree with you on that. True?
Yeah.
Yes. There's a question, the last question that, I don't know, can you guys see these questions when they come up on the screen?
Yep.
But okay.
Someone's yelling in all caps. Stop yelling in all caps.
How many, Scott Gumbar asked how many of these fathers are in prison for crimes that should not have them in prison. I would love to answer that question. I think it kind of gets us off the conversation about politics and who is best to help improve those unemployment rates, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about, is improving this country, every facet of this country. Whether it's, we may have less immigrants, according to Trump. We may have less Hispanics because we're going to deport a lot of Mexican people, apparently, if he's elected. I think there's a lot of conversation out there that really is volatile and is not helping us sometimes either. And I think we need to talk about, how are these candidates going to help us? And as small business owners, how do we get our voice out there to make sure that they're looking out for us as well? So
Colleen, I do mortgages in 8 states, which involves a lot of inner cities. I just don't see from everything, and I listened to the Democratic convention, maybe all but 2 or 3 of the speeches that were done. Believe me, I listened to them. I wanted to see what I was missing. So I still don't understand from everything that I've heard Hillary say and whatever everybody else has said, how anything is going to change in the inner cities. I don't get it. I don't understand one iota how anything is going to change in the inner cities coming from 8 years under Obama and going forward with Hillary for whatever number of years. I don't see what's going to change.
So Hillary, I agree with you. And Hillary did a speech 2 weeks ago that really addressed that. But at that point I didn't hear any solutions or answers at that point either. I don't know if anybody else has heard any solutions to those challenges.
I mean, Kyle, as a business owner, in surrounding Hartford, it's a struggling city. And part of the reason it's struggling is everybody moves out of Hartford. Nobody moves into Hartford. So how does it affect your business? It's in your backyard.
So it doesn't, because we do very little business here in Connecticut, to be honest with you. We've helped 27 businesses to get the hell out of Connecticut. We have. I mean, that's just real, to go towards more tax-friendly states. One of the other things that we do have to consider, and whether or not you guys like what he's saying about deporting people who are here illegally, there is something to be said for the fact that people who are here illegally are taking jobs away from the minority community statistically. And so that alone is a move that is in support of lower income families or minority communities, when those jobs are going to people who aren't here legally, who aren't necessarily paying into the system.
And it's a good argument, and I think that part of the issue is that the jobs that those lower income minorities and immigrants get are jobs that most people do not want. So it is a necessary sector for it to be filled.
There's also the conversation about minimum wage. I mean, Hillary has said that she wants to raise the federal minimum wage to $12 and in some cases $15 an hour, which has a huge, horrible negative impact on small businesses. I mean, state of Connecticut, for example, is talking about legislation that businesses that don't pay $15 an hour in terms of a bare minimum wage will have to pay $1 per hour per employee into a fund that's going to go right into the state's general coffers. The reality of it is that no business that's out there that has 500 employees that's paying them $12 an hour is going to go, oh, well, shit, yeah, let me bump that up to $15 an hour. No, they're going to lay people off, or they're going to go, okay, well, $12 an hour, now I'm going to have to pay you $11 an hour for all employees.
I will tell you, there is a lot of truth to that, just coming from that environment where we have payrolls in the hundreds of thousands. It is true. It's a percentage number. A company gives their payroll a percentage. They don't give it, there's a total dollar amount, a total percentage of sales that happens. So it's just how many hours are going to take up that mass. It's not like they're giving more money, unfortunately.
I think it's very important, though, that we've got to weigh all of these things towards each other. As Joe said, he's got people coming in with 3 part-time jobs getting a mortgage. Well, if there was a higher minimum wage, odds are he wouldn't need as many part-time jobs. It could be a full-time one. It makes it a little bit easier for him to get a mortgage. Right. Also, hand in hand with that is, if you want to create more money in inner cities, you need more livable wages. And the current minimum wage is unlivable. When a gallon
minimum wage was never meant to be livable, though. Kyle, it was never meant to be livable.
Kyle. But the issue with that is that the minimum wage was built when 4 years of high school was all you needed to get a middle-class job. Now you need 4 years of college to get a middle-class job, thus making that income gap larger. So if you want to help inner cities, you need to make livable wages more attainable. The point is, there's no perfect solution, but you can't just say my small business is going to lose 3 people, yet I want to help the inner cities, I want to have better roads, I want to have a better education system. There needs to be a middle ground, and Donald Trump has not laid out how he's going to cut taxes and replace all those gaps to offset everything else.
Let's
I I love Russell's comment in here, which is a very fair point. It's something that sort of speaks to Joe, which is that the minimum wage shouldn't be sufficient for someone to buy a house, and then buying a house is not a right. It's an accomplishment. I completely agree. I mean, so my first job was flipping burgers at McDonald's and cleaning toilets, and I didn't turn around and say, well, damn it, I want $15 an hour. I said, well, damn it, I better find a better job.
Kyle, you want to know what? And you're correct with that. But the other side of it is, if the minimum wage is attainable, you don't need to have 3 jobs, as Joe pointed out, and you can get that insurance that you need. There's a balance that has to happen between all of these factors. You can't have one without the other. And Trump hasn't split the gap. And the point of this debate is how one presidential nominee is going to help us towards that decision. And when you cut, and don't pull from anywhere else, where is it coming from? And that's vital to me as a voter, and I would think as you guys as small business owners.
William, you are partially correct from the standpoint of increased income. However, I can tell you, Kyle is 100% right when it comes to, if there are now requirements that the minimum wage has to be $12 or $15, they're going to cut back on the number of employees.
I get it.
So, unfortunately, for every action is an opposite and equal reaction. It's not quite as simple as we move everybody to $15 an hour and we've solved the problem, and all of a sudden there's more money in the system to make it work. It doesn't work that way. There's many businesses that would be out of business tomorrow if there was a requirement that they increase their dollars per hour. And I can also tell you, I know a handful of illegals in this country that are working for minimum wage, $7, $8 an hour, that are thankful because they now have a family that they're paying for to have kids and so forth that they are feeding with those jobs. So he's right. It doesn't matter that it's $7 an hour. Kyle was smart enough to look for a job that he was paying $10 or $12 an hour. Hopefully that dishwasher or whatever that's collecting $7 or $8 an hour is going to work up there. This is a starting point. It's not the end all.
And I never said it was, but it becomes.
The minute we go from 12 to 15, that's going to be end of the problem. The following year, it's going to be we need to make 20.
And I agree with that. And there's no argument for me on that. The point is that as the qualifications for jobs become deeper and the cost of education to get those becomes higher, something needs to be done to make life more attainable to the lower income. That's it. And I don't know how it's done. And the point is, there's been no solution driven by either candidate, you could say.
So I think that I'm the only millennial in-house here, and I want to weigh in on the college side of things.
What are you saying?
I'm a millennial.
Saying you guys are old. I don't know. What do you want me to tell you? So William, you're like
No, I resemble
borderline.
that remark.
But the point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm hearing all the time from other millennials bitching and moaning about, well, I have $250,000 in college debt. Well, guess what? I don't have any college debt. You know why? Because I didn't go to a school that was $50,000 a year and take on all of these loans. You make that decision, and success isn't predicated on what school you go to. Success is predicated on your hustle. So if you have $250,000 in college debt because you made a decision to go get a freaking liberal arts degree at a $50,000 a year school, I don't have any sympathy, none, no sympathy whatsoever.
Kyle, why are you highlighting like the 1%? This is the issue.
How's that the 1%? Are you kidding me?
1% of people, it's 1% of people have $250,000 in student loans. I mean, it's the 1% of the problem.
Okay,
You know that student loans
it is the largest bubble that's building into our economy right now, which is student debt.
And why do you think there is such an income gap between us and our parents?
Because
they got the same education at UConn that I got in UConn for 10 times the cost and the same job out of college. That gap is part of why we're in this problem. And it needs to be more attainable, Kyle.
How? So you're going to tell me that there's no difference between someone going to a $40,000 or $50,000 a year school or someone going to a $22,000 a year school?
That's not what I said. I I went to UConn for $25,000 a year. My father went to UConn for $2,500 a year. If inflation and growth of salaries have not equated to that, that's a bubble that's going to pop, and people are not going to get high-earning jobs. It's part of the reason why we're in the situation we're in, and there's been so much push for debt-free state education, because it's been determined that our tax dollars go to high school education, because when that was built, that was what you needed for a middle-class job, and that's no longer what you need.
So Russ is saying that we don't make less than our parents, which is true. We've had the last 40, how many years?
I never said we made less. It proportionally, significantly less.
No, but we don't. I mean, look at the middle class income has raised slower than any other income out there.
Exactly.
But to your point, the cost of education is ridiculous. Huge.
Rent in San Francisco. A studio apartment in San Francisco is $3,500 a month. If you're not in the 1% that has a tech sector job, guess what? You're homeless, or you're not living in San Francisco. Then you're a step back. The point is, this all needs to be fixed, and Trump has not said anything to address it.
So doubling the minimum wage and shooting all corresponding costs through the roof, that'll definitely do it.
No, I think what Hillary is challenging is that we're making school affordable.
But how is that making school affordable?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is get in-state school tuition lower so more kids have the opportunity to get out of those minimum wage jobs and move up. If you look at right now, we deal with this with generating winners all the time. These parents, there is so much angst in high school. Anxiety is 10 times worse than it ever was when you were in high school or when I was in high school, because of the cost of education right now. These kids have so much stress to get scholarships, get into the right school. But the biggest stress is, how do they collectively, between themselves and their parents, afford that? So even these kids that are just doing their best,
what would you guys tell to all those students that have, or the recent graduates that all have college degrees and can't get a damn job?
Didn't you just say that part of why you love Donald Trump is his ability to say it's not working and we need to fix it? Well, guess what? That's not working and it needs to be fixed.
I agree.
I think,
I do have a theory. I do have a theory about millennial jobs. I think that's going to shift really quickly in the next 5 years, regardless of who is president. We have 60% of baby boomers retiring in the next 5 years. Somebody's got to take those jobs. I think right now we're looking at the two biggest populations still working, and the shift has got to happen. And we hear a lot about underemployed millennials. I think there's a huge gap here that will quickly right itself as more baby boomers retire. I think one of the challenges is baby boomers are now, they're losing their jobs. They're going into, like to Joe's point earlier, some of these numbers are a little off in how they're being reported. The unemployment rate isn't as low as we think it is. It's just more people are getting pushed into our system. So
there's one other area that I'd like to just take on for a moment. Manufacturing jobs in this country continue to dwindle, no matter how we look at it. So if we're talking about bringing some of those jobs because of the new tax rate system that Trump has proposed, don't you think some of the job people that are looking for jobs might have an opportunity to get some of those jobs, and some of the education that the people that young folks are getting today, aren't they going to be in a position to get some of those manufacturing jobs if they come back here? Because otherwise there's no reason to have them here.
So, we work with a lot of manufacturers, Joe, and I will tell you, speaking for them, the challenge for them is it is really hard to hire as well. So they're trying to figure out, how do they create these environments where they're unable to hire. I do a lot of work in this space where millennials are coming out and there's work-life integration. They don't want set hours. So they're really struggling also to hire. So what's happening is there's more of a need to go automated, more of a need to go overseas for those jobs. So we've got to figure out how to, I think where Donald Trump kind of gets my head thinking a little bit here and spinning is, how do we get these jobs back in the United States that are being pushed out because kind of our demographic has changed? And maybe it's legalizing like, we're America. To say that we're not going to take people from another country kind of hurts my pride as an American. But we need to do it legally. We need to figure out how to
I think I think it's very important when you're looking at just ultimately how we're going to go about these manufacturing jobs. It's deciding what manufacturing jobs they're going to be. I was watching one of the rallies of a Trump in Ohio, and people are upset that a paper mill has lost 3,000 jobs.
Yeah.
What? That job's not coming back, okay? It's not going to come back. There's not going to be a paper mill that hires 3,000 people. So when Trump decides to really take away everything from the platform on climate change, when we think that that could develop over 2.2 million new jobs, some of which are going to be in the manufacturing realm for windmills and things of that nature, it's important to find new ways to create manufacturing jobs, not just saying, hey, they're all gone, we need to get them back. Those are dated jobs that don't exist anymore.
Right.
Not saying all of them, but there's a huge amount of them that do not exist.
So, William, you make a very, very fair point, and I can't disagree with that. And I would argue that that's the whole reason why this shift in minimum wage is unrealistic, because you roll out a $15 an hour minimum wage, and guess what I'm going to tell every single restaurant group that we work with? Automate. I go to Friendly's now to get ice cream because I would put peanut butter sauce all over my house and lick it off if I could. And guess what? Now they have automated systems right there where you have a food runner running food to 20 different tables. And at the end of the day, you swipe your credit card right in that system. So how can we move towards automation to eliminate employees?
Here's where it boils down to for me is that Uber literally just came out with ride-free cars that are going to launch next month. Driver-free cars next month, because they knew if they did not get into that space, they were going to be dead. Mm-hmm. Their CEO physically said our business will die because Google and Apple were already getting into that space.
Yep.
Ford as well. Yeah.
So if I can eliminate every taxi job in this country in 20 years, let's say, because every driver's automated, and how many of those manufacturing jobs are going to become automated, we then need to look in creation of new jobs. And that's why I have a major issue with Trump's platform taking out all of the acknowledgement of climate change, which is our #1 sector for new jobs and job growth.
I love this conversation about new jobs. We're at 11 o'clock. I just want you guys to weigh in really quickly, and then we'll ask a closing question. But before we get to that, let's get to Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. What effect do you guys believe they have on this political race?
Very little.
Yeah, I do too.
I think that either one of them are opportunities for people to feel good about themselves, and they're simply a vote for people who can't do math.
I do think, though, if Gary Johnson had flipped his ticket, he'd have a substantial chance. I just think his inability to hold a good conversation is going to crush that man.
I will say that, the tagline of Feel the Johnsons, not bad. I'll give credit where credit is due.
And, I don't think you can get by as a presidential candidate with excessive drug use in your history. I think
No.
a pretty significant red flag. So.
Russ Lowry, one of my favorite people. I don't know if anybody's reading Russ's comments, but they're really awesome. And Russ, you need to be a guest soon on this, but he's got some great comments in there about and some opinions, so make sure you read that.
Yeah, I would love to have Russ come drink at the office with me.
Oh, Russ is awesome.
I could get down with that too. And hey, Russ, just to address, I'm not saying don't live in San Francisco, but if all the new tech jobs are in San Francisco, kind of important to live there and have a job where you work. So. And I do.
But I think that's ludicrous, because if you look at some of the biggest tech companies that are starting up, they're actually starting up out of not in California.
Correct.
Why is that?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Why is that? To address
Let me just tell you,
it's because
IBM.
the market. The market is the market.
No, IBM is the greatest example of this. Remember when Gates hired a new CEO of IBM, and now I'm going to lose his name, right? But the first thing he did is he asked IBM, he asked the team, he said, how many employees under the age of 40 do we have in Silicon Valley? And the answer was 0. And at that point when he took over, Microsoft was dying. They're really, really struggling. The first thing he did is put a representation of younger people who he perceived as the future and put them where innovation happens. I talked to a company in Germany that we're helping. They opened an office in San Diego because it was the closest that they could afford to Silicon Valley at the time, but they put an employee there because they felt that from a global perspective, they could not deliver and get what they needed, not being a part of that culture and what was happening out there.
Just to go to Trump.
Here's a reason and a way to get people into the United States. We have to be the leaders in green energy and internet and innovation. This is what the United States is known for. I think this is our answer to bring business back, but we need to pay attention as leaders to why it's important to continuously innovate and be leaders.
You know, McAfee had a really great point when they were talking about whether or not we should put in a backdoor on Apple products. McAfee said, listen, I'll hack that freaking phone in 2 weeks. I'll put my best guys on it. You can't do it because the government isn't willing to hire a bunch of dudes who have tattoos and who chain smoke all day. I'm not afraid of them. I embrace them. And I guess that's the difference, too, between a lot of these government jobs and private sector jobs, is that the innovation will always happen faster at that private level.
No argument.
Right. Joe, you were going to weigh in on something before we kind of went down another rabbit hole here. Did you want to add?
I don't know, whatever the hell the rabbit hole was, I didn't
I want to go to Colleen's point, though. You make a great one, right? If you need representation in Silicon Valley, and Trump needs to talk to black people in front of black people, and we need to have people where the business equates. And I think Trump needs to embrace that in his campaign if he truly wants to go from
great.
If he wants to go from a 1% poll with African Americans.
And William, let me also clarify, I don't think that neither Joe or I, and Joe, not to speak on your behalf, but I'm going to anyway, I don't think
you have before, it's okay.
I don't think either one of us would argue that Trump is a perfect candidate. I think it's sort of like going out to a really, really lousy restaurant and all they have is flank steak or sirloin steak on the menu. You're like, well, you know, which one ultimately isn't going to suck as bad as the other? So I think that there are a ton of chinks in the armor and a ton of areas where I don't see eye to eye with Trump. There's no debate there.
I think you're giving him huge credit for even having armor on. So at least he's got the suit for the chinks to be in. Because
listen, man, bottom line is that guy's got the thickest skin.
He's got armor. He got thick armor.
Is that what that orange is?
He has the thickest?
Absolutely.
He can't even watch a cable show without tweeting it. He's got the thinnest skin in America.
That doesn't mean you have thin skin. That means you have a hot temper. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that I have a massively hot temper as a business owner.
I'm going to go with thin skin there, too, a little bit.
Okay. You have one statement, and one statement only, and not like a gigantic paragraph, one statement to convince everyone listening why to vote for your candidate. Go.
Who's up?
Joe, you go first.
Okay, so bottom line for me, as a business owner, I have a much better shot moving forward to expand my business, to bring new business into my office with Trump than I do with Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Kyle?
I believe in integrity and I believe in the power of the people in the free market. And so Trump is my guy, and we're going to make William great again.
I will. I don't know if I can top that, right? I mean, ultimately for me, it's really simple. I don't think that I could raise my children in front with that man representing our country, where isolationism, misogyny, sexism, racism, and bigotry are the foundation of his campaign. And if you don't think that is the foundation of his campaign and the flip-flopping he's had, is he been lying for the past 14 months or is he going to lie for the next 10 weeks?
Thank you, guys. Here's my rally cry. 4 years from today, I hope we're having a better conversation.
Still love you, believe it.
Oh, dude, I still love you. I thought I would listen, man. I would have cocktails with all three of you any day. And Russ, I like Russ. I don't like that other guy who's yelling in all capital letters, but I like the Russ guy.
Well, I do think that a big bourbon is in order at the libation station.
Absolutely.
Colleen, we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this, you guys. This was awesome. It was fun, and I can't wait to see it roll through the internet because you guys said what America's thinking. Thank you.
Just make sure you vote.
Make
for Trump.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.